Hello Internet, and today's video is going to be another Top 5 Wednesday. This is a Goodreads group run by Sam over at Thoughts on Tomes. Both links are down below for your perusal. And today's topic is science fiction and fantasy in other media. So what type of science fiction and fantasy do you enjoy in entertainment that is not directly related to reading? So I am a very extra person, so this is going to be a little bit longer than what you would traditionally think. I'm going to give you several types of science fiction and fantasy and several different forms of media that I enjoy. So I have 4 types of media that I like to consume, and I have 1 science fiction and 1 fantasy for each type of media that I personally enjoy. So these are all recommendations. Really, this is just a recommendation list of things that I think are awesome and I would hope other people would also enjoy. So first we're going to talk about anime. So I am a big fan of anime. All sorts of anime from all over the world. Anime is just the Japanese form of cartoons, but it is a specific style. Like, there's something very special about anime in itself and this medium that isn't quite parallel to cartoons or movies or like TV shows. Like, you know how TV shows and movies are a different form of media? Well, anime is a different form of media as well. So I'm going to give you my science fiction anime that I really like, and I'm going to go with Voltron Legendary Defenders. Now, I know many anime purists out there are going to be angry at me because they're like, oh, you chose an American anime, that doesn't even really count as anime. And I'm going to tell you to shut up right now. You watch that show, you clearly see that it is anime, no matter whether or not it comes directly from Japan or not. It is anime. Anyway, if any of you anime purists are watching this, I just want you to know you can leave all your nasty comments, but I ain't paying attention. So Voltron is about a group of paladins, a group of teens who figure out that there are 5 lions, mechanical lions, and each teen ends up being a pilot for these lions. This lion ends up forming this giant mecha called Voltron. And they have to go around the different galaxy to different planets, fighting with the use of Voltron to try to keep peace across the universe, because there is, of course, one evil dictator who's trying to conquer the galaxy. It's basically this whole show. It is very, very entertaining. I think why I love this anime in particular is because although I'm not a huge fan of mecha anime, which means like giant robot anime, I am a fan of Voltron because I find it rather hilarious to think of a giant mecha robot that has cat heads as fists and punching people in the face. There are other great qualities about the anime itself, but that is one that I personally find hilarious. So I love when Voltron forms and it gets to punch and fight people, because I'm just highly amused by the fact that it has lion heads as hands and is punching people with those lion's heads. I know that's strange. That's just the kind of humor I have. So my second anime that I'm going to mention is a fantasy anime, and I'm going to go with Avatar: The Last Airbender. Again, anime purists, you can get out of here. This is anime. So Avatar: The Last Airbender, which I'm sure many of you have heard about, even if you haven't watched, you've heard it through the grapevine. This is a very, very popular show. Avatar is about a young boy named Aang, and he ends up being this thing called the Avatar, which is master of 4 elements. So they live in a world where it's common for people to earthbend or firebend and such as, and the Avatar is the one person who can bend all 4 elements. Now, this happens through a reincarnation line, and Aang finds out that he is the next Avatar, and now he has to try to figure out how to keep balance in his world, because the Fire Nation attacked and started wars across the world, and it is up to Aang as the Avatar to once again bring peace so that everyone can live happily ever after. This is just a really, really fun time. It's a compelling story, it has great redemption arcs, great characters. I love how you get to see how having a certain element that you bend kind of shapes who you you are as a person, because if you watch, you can see how they are affected by the element they bend and how similar they are to the elements that they bend and how that kind of shapes their personality. And it's really great to see all of these people of different personalities get together and be a part of the Aang gang, and like just it's a lot of fun. Okay, there's a lot of episodes where you just get a chance to get to know these characters and meet these characters. So it is a very character driven story. However, it does have an amazing plot of Aang trying to learn all of these elements so that he can fight the Fire Lord. Now on to my second form of media, which is going to be movies. So I'm a big fan of movies, of course. I just like watching things. One of my favorite science fiction movies is the new Star Trek movies, the line that they did. I just really like them. I know that many people have problems with the new Star Trek movies. They don't think they're that good, yada yada, yada yada, but I'm sorry. I just had so much fun with those movies. There's something that I always enjoy watching. There's just something about them that I really, really love and I find really, really entertaining. Plus, I am there for my space husbands, okay? You probably already know this if you watch past videos, but I like Captain Kirk and Spock together, so I like every chance I get to see them in media because it's just so great. Most of the time I have to stick to fan fiction, but I wouldn't mind a few more Star Trek movies. If it's only me watching it, I'm perfectly fine with it. But I think they're a really, really good time, so I like watching them. And then my second movie that I'm going to mention is actually anime. It's an anime movie, Howl's Moving Castle. It is a Miyazaki film, a Studio Ghibli film. I know that many of you are probably familiar with this. This was a great, great movie. It is about a young girl who ends up getting cursed and turned into an old woman. She ends up coming across a magician sort of person called Hal, and she ends up staying in his moving castle, working as a cleaning lady and helping him through some stuff. He's super dramatic, by the way, which I love, so that she can try to figure out a way to break this curse and turn back to her young self. Now, I have a special connection with Howl's Moving Castle in particular. While I do like all Studio Ghibli's films and I highly suggest you go and watch them, Howl's Moving Castle was the only one I ever got to chance to see in full as a kid without looking it up on the internet. This was before I could just look up movies and stuff on the internet and try to find different ways and outlets to watch things. So Howl's Moving Castle and a few other Studio Ghibli films often came on cable TV through Cartoon Network and other such programming. I wasn't a rich kid. I didn't have no fancy TV or programming, and I was not allowed to watch at certain times of day, and it was always kind of a struggle. And then I had other siblings that didn't like the same things I did. So Howl's Moving Castle was the first movie I actually got a chance to see from beginning to end and fell in love with. I highly recommend other Studio Ghibli films, but because that was the first, because it just really gravitated, I really gravitated towards it, I'm going to put it here in this place, and I highly suggest you go watch that one. And eventually all the other Studio Ghibli films. TV shows that I like. So my science fiction TV show is going to go to Stranger Things. I know many of you already know what this is about, but if you don't, it is about a group of young preteens, teens, kids, whatever you want to refer to them as, and they end up finding out that there is another parallel sort of dimension to theirs that they refer to the Upside Down. There are weird creatures in the Upside Down that are menacing and trying to eat the people of their world, and they have to try to find a way to fight them, especially when one of their friends goes missing. They also meet a girl called 11 who has telekinetic powers because of experimentation done to her by the government. It has a very 80s feel to it, but I think nostalgic 80s, because otherwise the 80s aren't really that cool, but nostalgic 80s are pretty cool. Otherwise, whatever. And this is a very compelling story. I think one of the reasons I really love it is because it brought a true nerd sphere into the popular eye by using D&D as a way that these kids communicate with each other and try to understand a world that they've never really seen before. They use this language that it comes from a game, basically, to explain these weird happenstance that they are seeing that really aren't explainable. And as a nerd myself, I really enjoy seeing that. I really enjoy seeing like the nerdy language being used to explain something that otherwise really isn't explainable. And yes, they're probably not the perfect one-for-one comparisons, but it's pretty nice to see these kids have to go into this and they're using the knowledge they do have to try to figure out how to defeat these evil creatures that are coming after them. And the second show that I'm going to mention is another Netflix original, and this is Sense8. I don't talk enough about Sense8, but it is one of my favorite shows. I have constantly rewatched it, both seasons. I'm still waiting to see if they're ever going to do anything about a third season or that third season movie or whatever they're doing there. But this show is amazing. If you want a show with a lot of queer rep, you go watch this show right now. It is fabulous. So this is about, so we live in a world where there are humans and there are these special like subsect of humans that can form clusters. So a cluster is basically a group of 8 people who are born on the same day at the exact same time. They can then be awakened and they form a cluster, which basically means that they share their minds together. They're all individuals, but they share like a hive mind, a connection that lets them share information and visit each other and do things that they're no longer one single person, but a group of people who make this collective organism, basically. So all of a sudden, 8 people just get connected. They don't know what's happening. All of a sudden, they're just seeing other people in their head. They're like, what's going on? Why is this happening to us? And they realize they have been awakened as a cluster, and clusters exist in many other people as well, and many other people have clusters. However, it is a very big danger to be a cluster because there is like an organization who has been lobotomizing and experimenting on this special species of human because they want to understand more about what makes clusters clusters and sort of how people can share abilities through their mental connection. So these 8 are thrusted in as like basically children in the cluster world and are struggling to find out how to survive while also dealing with personal issues in their personal lives and trying to balance that with the fact that they are slowly being hunted down and found out. So it is a very, very entertaining show. It is full of character and personality, and did I mention there's so much queer rep, and it is also great, and I've just rewatched that show countless amount of times, so I highly suggest that. Now, the last form of media I'm going to talk about is cartoons. I am a big proponent of cartoons. I watch cartoons. You cannot prevent me from watching cartoons. Nobody can convince me that I'm ever too old for cartoons. When I was a kid, I had this belief that adults were so unhappy because they didn't allow themselves to watch cartoons and didn't allow themselves to enjoy simple, happy things in life, so I promised myself I would never let myself give up on things because of age barriers. I would never tell myself that I couldn't enjoy a form of entertainment because I was too old. So to this day, I'm not that old, but to this day I still watch cartoons because I'm not going to give up my love for cartoons even if people call me childish for liking cartoons. So now that that's out of the way, my science fiction cartoon that I'm going to mention is Steven Universe. This is something that I've been keeping track of since it first aired, but something that I don't highly recommend if you're not in it for long waits in time. There are several episodes out for you to go watch and catch up on, but I don't know what's going on with Cartoon Network. They don't have enough animators or storyboard artists or something, but the episode wait list for Steven Universe is so long. You gotta wait 5 years and you get one episode that's 11 minutes. I don't know what's happening, but Cartoon Network needs to get it together. So I personally really like this show, but I suggest if you're not a patient person, maybe don't watch this one yet because they be taking their sweet ass time to complete it. So Steven Universe, if you're not familiar, is about a young boy named Steven, and he is half human and half alien. His alien half comes from a gem. Gems are aliens that have been going around colonizing different planets and using the resources of their planets to create more gems. The gems tried to colonize Earth, but a certain gem faction, referred to as the Crystal Gems, rose up and stopped them, the leader being Rose Quartz, who is Steven's mother. Now, Steven has lost his mother in a weird mix that you would understand if you watched the show, and he is being raised by other members of the Crystal Gems, and he's slowly finding out how his powers work with him being half human, and also more about this Crystal Gem history and gem history in general, because people are pretty uptight about the truth here, and he has to slowly try to pry it away and figure out what's happening and what happened so he can know what to do. It is a very sweet show. It has a lot of episodes that are just fun that you can like just watch and enjoy, but it does have an underlining plot throughout the whole show, which just makes it all the better. It's very, very intriguing. I'm sure that some of you have probably seen all the gem theories out there in the Steven Universe theories, because let me tell you, there is a lot of information to work off of to try to come up with what Rebecca Sugar is planning for this show. And then for my fantasy cartoon, I'm going to go with Star versus the Forces of Evil. This comes from Disney. This is a great show. Oh my gosh, I love this so much. This show is also like Steven Universe in the sense that it is very androgynous. It caters to all people. It has very healthy depictions of masculinity and femininity across the board. You can see males being very feminine and females being very masculine, and I just think it's a very healthy show, but that's beside the point. This is about a young girl called Star Butterfly. She comes from another dimension called Muni, which is ruled by mutants who are similar to humans in most aspects, but have a few little oddities that make them different. Now, on Muni, there are humans and there are monsters, and humans and monsters have been at war for a really long time. Star finally comes of age to get her magical wand, and her parents are kind of concerned about her living on Muni with her magic still untested, so they send her to Earth, where she ends up living with this kid called Marco Diaz, and his family often takes in foreign exchange students. These two end up becoming great friends and fighting monsters together and discovering more about different dimensions and the history of Muni and how Munis and monsters fit into the wider scale of things and how magic fits in to all of this. Like I said, there is a lot of great things. Like, I love Star. Like, this is my example of how androgynous this show is. Star is a princess, right? She is a very feminine princess. She's always wearing very cute things, very girlish things, but at the same time, she is a warrior. She likes to fight. Although her spells sound cutesy, she can pack a punch. And this is what I mean by showing femininity in a masculine light, I guess, but also in like a feminine light as well. Like, it's very androgynous, this show, and how it's portrayed. There's a lot of things in this show that there's so much to this that I love about it that I can't really point out, but like, Marco has to act female, and that's not an insult to anybody that he has to do that, and like different things like this where I just like that these are cartoons that we are being given and that I know that younger people are watching, which just show you a lot of broader ideas. So I personally really love this show, and this is one I would suggest you go and watch right now, because unlike over a cartoon, Disney has enough storyboard artists or whatever, so episodes are continually coming out, and you can always count on Star versus the Forces of Evil to be there to entertain you. Now, these are all of the science fiction and fantasy that I enjoy in other media, so if you like what you're seeing here and you want to continue to see more, click all those bunnies down below, and goodbye, internet.